I got to tell you, I'm really excited about this format. You guys will have to give me some feedback as to what you think about it. But, right now I'm in my hometown. I drove about 15 minutes to get to where I'm standing right now. I'm going to go have dinner with my wife and kids tonight. I didn't have to travel. I don't have to stay overnight in some hotel. You guys are probably sitting at the comfort of your homes. The only challenge I have with this format is right now I'm looking outside. It's a beautiful sunny day, and we're inside. So fortunately, it's not all that warm outside. But those of you in Southern California and Florida where it's nice and warm, kudos for being here. I'm sure you'd love to be outside playing. That said, good job last session. We had some great questions. Hopefully you guys are getting some good notes. And you're getting some good content that you're going to find helpful. Here in session 2, what we want to talk about, thanks Laura. Laura says, this format rocks. Appreciate that feedback, Laura. Let me just take this. I'm getting a few questions here from the last session, which I want to address before we go on, just so that we can make sure everyone's on the same page here. Hard money takes time to get because of the packet we have to put together. Why would the bank get my offer when they have 10 to 15 offers, all cash? Guys, what I'm going to cover in this next session, I'm going to show you how you literally can put together this packet in less than an hour. All right. So if I made the last session make the package sound cumbersome, it's not. You just need to be aware that there are steps and some policies and procedures that you want to make sure you follow. And there are items you want to make sure you absolutely have to have, okay? So these packages can be assembled very quickly without any challenge whatsoever. And we'll get you to that point, so don't worry about it. All right, what else? The Elmo remains focused at the surface of the calculator, not the notebook page level. Yeah, we're getting a little fuzz here, Mike. Can we... it's going to autofocus. It's going to autofocus that? Okay, that looks a little better. Yeah. Good, all right. Thanks for the feedback there. All right, what do you mean to get the best possible blended rate on increasing your credit card lines? What is meant by blended rate? Okay, great question. Blended rate works like this. If I've got a card at 10, a card at 8, and a card at 12, my blended rate is effectively 10 because I'm paying less for money at 8, I'm paying middle money at 10, and I've got a card at 12. So I'm going to blend my rates together so my cost of borrowing money is effectively 10%. Now the reason blended rate is used when dealing with credit card funding and transacting deals utilizing credit card lines is very rarely will you use one card for one deal, because the average deal is going to range at $75,000 to $150,000, and most people don't have lines of credit that large, so they will spread it out over multiple cards, and you'll need to get a blended rate so you know what your cost of money is, okay? And that's important when you guys probably very well now understand inventory of money and what money costs, so that blended rate just gives us one number as to costs of money to make it easier to run our calculations and our profit and losses. Okay? Good question, Joanne. All right, let's see. Jerry, good feedback, Jerry. I love it. No travel expenses. There are some technical glitches that you will improve with experience. Always positive, Jerry. I appreciate that. All right. What page in the Hard Money Master course are we on? Did not print the other manual. Okay, guys, we are not working from the Hard Money Mastery binder today. This is some of the old placed with some of the new, but we've put it together in a new format, in a new binder. So you need to go to the email that I sent you a couple of days ago with the binder and open it up and print it out, because all of the things I'm talking about today are coming from the new notebook. All right, so print that out. Now, for those of you that are watching this at home, the notebook was sent to you. And you guys listening on the webinar, I'm speaking into the future because we're going to take all the stuff we're doing today and we're going to package it and put it into a new course. And then that course will be sold. So those that are watching, those of you here now, those that will be having it shipped to them, that'll be in 4 or 5 months once we get it all put together. By the way, you are amazing, so calm no matter what comes in your way. Thanks, Judith. I appreciate that. I probably didn't need to read that one out loud, but I kind of liked it, so I thought I would. All right, I think that covers our questions, so let's get in here to session number 2. And in session 2, we're going to be talking about finding deals that funding loves. So let's go to our notebook here real quick. On page 27 is where I'm reading. You can see it on the Elmo unit. It says, caution, check your emotions at the door. As a hard money borrower or broker, before you've grown a thick skin to rejection, you may be prone to fall in love with the properties you find. You'll think they're the cat's meow. And because of this, you'll pour your blood, sweat, and tears into finding everything there is out about the property. I've known people who interview the neighbors, pursue the schools nearby, delve into the intimate history of the property, and gather every little detail about it, only to find out that it's not as great as they imagined it to be. You need to remove all past biases and look at properties through objective investor lenses. Is it a good deal? Are there economical, quick ways to fix it? Up to sell for more? Is it any of the above? Pre-foreclosure, short sale, bank-owned, going to auction, or distressed in any way? Ask these questions before you let your pulse quicken and your imagination run away from you. Here are 3 hints to help you. Let me see if I can focus this in. How's that? That's better. A little bit. Okay, guys, I apologize about the camera. I think that's pretty clear, though. All right. Here are 3 hints to help you not fall into the time trap caused by the rose-colored glasses of good deals. Number 1, no property should take more than 2 to 4 hours of your time max. Now I'm talking about time from identification of the property, time from receipt of the purchase and sale agreement, time to do the due diligence, time to establish and estimate value, time to determine what's on title, what liens are there, time to determine the collateral that's being put up and the value of that, as well as the risk relationship and scenario of the individual deal. All right. Now I will tell you this. The first couple of times you do this, it's going to seem like an unending task. And I know some of you have already expressed your frustrations with my office because every time you send us something, we request more. But understand, even though I know that's frustrating for you, understand that this is a learning process. And a lot of you are new to my company, my organization, and you're not familiar with all of the ins and outs of what we need and don't need and on and on and on. Also, every deal is different. So as much as it is a standardized package, very rarely, unless it's such a cookie-cutter deal that you've done 29 times, there's always going to be, most of the time, a request for some additional information, whether it be additional information about the property or additional information about the borrower. Okay, we just funded a loan 2 days ago, and the broker or the funding source that we took it to came back to us 3 times to provide additional collateral and additional financial information on the borrower just so that they could feel good about the transaction. So they wanted to see updated bank statements, they wanted to see amended tax returns, and they wanted to see proof of funds and reserves, so sourced and seasoned funds, which we'll get to. So fortunately, we're able to provide those things because we anticipated they were coming. So guys, again, if you're getting no's from my office, it's because the deal isn't good for everyone that's involved. It's not good for you. It's not good for us. It's not good for the party that's going to put up the funding. All right. So it's nothing personal. But as you get better at this, you will find that you will be qualifying these deals at your front door because you're not going to want to waste your time on a bunch of garbage. And that's really what we see with newbies, and I'm sure that's not most of you listening or watching. But what we see a lot with newbies is they'll go onto Craigslist and they'll just find all these people who need money, and they'll go to the application, which we're going to go through, and they're basically doing no due diligence, no pre-conclusion homework. They're just sending it over to us. And so when we get it, we're like, this is such a garbage deal. Why did you even send this to us? So in this session, I want to get done with this session and have you feel 100% comfortable that you can do this and that the majority of the deals you bring in are indeed going to get funding. Okay? But it starts with not getting emotionally involved. Number 2, remember that this is a job. You cannot let your emotions, preconceptions, or even desperation cause you to spend more time and effort on a property than is necessary. And that's really a polite way of saying don't try to make a deal if it's not. And we see this more, I mean, people literally get on the phone and are screaming at me, arguing that it's a deal. Guys, I've been doing this a really long time, and if it's a deal, believe me, we want to provide funding for it, because when it funds, we get paid. So it pains me to tell you no, because if you're getting told no, I'm getting told no, and none of us are making any money, and that's not good for any of us. So we need to make sure that the deals that are coming in are indeed fundable. And I understand that, and we're seeing this, some of you are getting so emotionally tied to the property prior to bringing it to us that it's really quite impossible to even have a conversation with you, because if it's not, here's a check, I'm suddenly the bad guy. Guys, understand, if I fund deals that don't work and my investors lose money, they're not going to fund any more deals for us, and then we're effectively out of business. Furthermore, if I fund a deal for you where you don't make any money, you're probably going to be out of the business and you're not going to be bringing me any more deals. I'll share this story with you because it's kind of interesting. I had a woman come, she sent in a deal, and the deal looked like this. Purchase price, E. Purchase price, $115,000. Down payment, $10,000. Amount that she wanted to borrow, $105,000. After repaired value, $95,000. Now, you're looking at that screen going, what? Yeah, this is a true deal. This is actually something that somebody sent in to me. She's buying the property for $115,000. She's putting $10,000 down. She wants to borrow $105,000. And when it's all said and done, she's going to sell it for $95,000. So this went through my underwriters, my processors, and this woman was livid, angry at everyone that we wouldn't fund this deal. So finally I got on the phone with her and I said, are you aware that if we lend you $105,000 and you sell this property for $95,000, that after fees, costs, and everything else, you're going to owe me about $30,000? And she would, no, I'm not. I said, no, you are. I said, follow me here. Look at the numbers. And finally, if she were a cartoon character, a little light bulb would have gone off over her head. And she went, oh, well, that's not a very good deal. And I said, I know. If it was a good deal, we would have funded it. All right? Believe me, guys, we want to write checks. We want to fund deals because we only get paid if we're funding deals. So a no means there's something about that transaction that makes us uncomfortable or makes our lenders uncomfortable, and that's why they're not writing checks. So keep in mind, it's nothing personal. Which brings us to number 3. Run the numbers. If they don't match up, walk the other way and don't look back. Guys, as I mentioned, I've been doing this a real long time, and there are very few deals that I need to spend longer than about 30 seconds looking at them, and I can tell you immediately if it's good or not. Now, there are some scenarios where the deal is close, all right? And that's where we need to go in search of additional collateral or additional participation from the borrower to reduce the risk to our end investor, all right? So we need to massage the numbers in some fashion to make it a more lucrative, safer deal for all of the parties that are involved, okay? So let's go over to page 29. And let's look at types of deals, okay? Evaluating the proposal. All right, and I'll just read the slides that you're looking at here real quickly. It says, you want to help, but many people want to help others, but don't get so attached that you can't distinguish a good deal from a bad, and your emotional well-being can't depend on the borrower's ability to keep their home. Sometimes the numbers just won't justify the deal, okay? And that slide was talking about when you're dealing with homeowners that are in foreclosure, where they owe more than it's worth, or they have some equity, but it's still tight and the margins don't work. And we actually run into this on occasion where we have the good Samaritan investor that wants to take on a risky loan or put themselves in a bad position because they want to help the homeowner so desperately. And that's a commendable venture, guys. Believe me, I wish we could help more homeowners that were in trouble and at risk of losing their house. However, at the end of the day, if the numbers don't make sense, we don't do the deal, all right? If we're going to be running a for-profit organization, we have to make sure that we make a profit every time. And sometimes saving homeowners in those situations just is not going to be profitable. Now, as a side note to that, the value of homeowners in foreclosure that are close to auction that have equity for a lower amount of cash, where you just bring in the arrearage amount and pay off the amount that they're behind, you can just now take over the underlying debt, okay, through an all-inclusive trust deed. But again, that's a legal matter. Consult with your financial advisor on that. But that's a great strategy. And you want to talk about leverage? Oh my goodness. Those are some of the highest yielding deals out there where you pay off the underlying arrearage and take over the underlying debt. Beautiful deals. I love those. All right. So types of deals, evaluating the proposal. Hard money has no set pricing or parameters. When quoting rates, remember they vary on the type of project, the type of deal, and the type of borrower. Now, let's go to our book here on page 29. It says, in all markets, everyone quotes the going points and interest rates to appear competitive. However, terms and pricing change drastically based on the risk to reward ratio of the project and the education experience savvy of the borrower. The more savvy the borrowers and the better the reward to risk, the better the terms and the pricing. Now, the reason I put this in here is this. On many of the loans that you guys are bringing to us, we are going to require that a credit report be pulled. Well, then I get phone calls saying, Lee, you know, your book and your marketing CD said that we don't have to have any credit. No. Please understand the reason that we're pulling credit. I'm not pulling credit because I care about your score. I could really care less about your score. The reason we sometimes, almost most of the time, require a credit report be pulled or provided is we want to see your background in the business. Let me give you this illustration. Actually, I'll do it this way. If I have two borrowers come to us, okay, so I'm going to say borrower A and borrower B, okay, borrower A, borrower B, okay. Borrower A has a 750 credit score, okay. They have been at their job for 10 years. They own 2 cars. They've lived at their house for 10 years. They have 1 credit card drawn down to 30% of the available line. They have 2 kids, 1 boy, 1 girl. They're both going to private school. And if I can make this illustration any more boring, I would. But basically, this is your perfect credit borrower, all right? And this guy or gal calls me up and says, hey, I've got this project worth $1 million, and I need to borrow $500,000. Okay, he's got a 750 score. Then I look over here at borrower B. Borrower B's got a little bit different situation. Borrower B's got a 580 credit score. Okay. Borrower B was a real estate investor when the market turned. Borrower B lost 50 properties to foreclosure or bankruptcy or short sale. 50 properties to foreclosure. Borrower B has $50,000 in cash to put down. Borrower A has $20,000 cash to put down. Borrower B is living in a rental property, waiting for credit to rebound and the market to hit bottom to buy. All right? Now, borrower B comes to me with the same deal. Borrower B wants to borrow $1 million, has a deal worth $1 million, wants to borrow $500,000 and has $50,000 to put down, so effectively they need $450,000. Okay? Now, this is your money, guys. This is your money. Who do you want to lend to? Borrower A or borrower B? Now, without pulling a credit score, there is no way that I would be able to tell if the borrower had properly represented their financial situation. Now, my question in this scenario is, why is borrower A coming to my company in search of a hard money loan when borrower A clearly would qualify for a conventional finance loan through any bank? All right? Why are they coming to us? Tells us a little bit about borrower A's educational background in matters of investments and money. All right? Borrower B, however, 580 credit score. Borrower B was carrying 50 plus properties when the market turned. Borrower B has the financial wherewithal and the knowledge of investing to know that he can buy 50 properties using conventional money, private money, for sale by owner money, subject to money. Borrower B is incredibly sophisticated because, guys, if you've never purchased and owned 50 plus properties in your portfolio, let me tell you, you got to really know what you're doing to get to that level. This guy, all this guy needs to do is have a trust fund for mom and dad, go to college for 4 years, get a great job, and live the American lifestyle. Take on no risk, have no concern. I mean, gets a paycheck every 2 weeks. As you can see from borrower A is not an entrepreneur. And as a result, I am a little leery about lending to borrower A, even though on paper borrower A looks better. So the purpose for the credit report is I want to see what is your experience in this business. Now again, if you're listening or watching because you just want to broker money and you're worried about your credit report getting pulled, well, if you're not buying anything, nobody's going to look at your credit. Nobody cares about your credit, all right? All our lenders are looking for is they want to know, do these folks know what they're doing? And if you're going to buy $1 million piece of property, maybe it's a restaurant that needs to be rehabbed or reset. Maybe it's a 20-unit apartment building that needs 10 units rehabbed and released, and you need to get a new tenant mix in there. Maybe it's a commercial strip center where 9 of the 10 units are vacant. So you've got to not only go in and put in new tenant improvements, but you've got to attract a new national tenant mix to round out and blend a better return on that commercial properties investment. There's nothing about borrower A that says they would have the knowledge to pull off that project. Okay? So I'm more interested, and again, I'm speaking for myself and my experience in this business. We're not real excited about borrower A. I'm going to tell borrower A to go to a bank because borrower A is not going to like my terms. He's not going to like the points I'm charging. He's not going to like the interest rate that I'm asking for because borrower A is used to leasing cars or buying cars and getting 0% financing because this borrower literally squeaks when they walk. All right? And that's a tough hard money loan to get. Send them to the credit union across the street. This person, this is a prime candidate for funding. Even though their credit's challenged, we don't care. We're just interested in their experience because they got a ton of it. All right? Okay, going back here. I'm back on page 29 in your book. When quoting rates, understand that the rate varies on the type of project, the deal, and the borrower. Lenders quote rates one way, but price is based on the project. Borrower involvement. What are you putting up for collateral? Page 30. Are you putting up cash? Are you putting up house? Are you putting up rentals? What kind of skin in the game do you have? Now, guys, skin in the game means the pricing goes down because the risk to the reward ratios are reduced, meaning if you need to borrow $100,000 on a property worth $100,000, one, you're never going to get that loan. Two, anybody that gives you that loan is crazy. Three, if they give you that loan, they're going to charge you an arm and a leg. So what skin in the game does is it reduces our risk or our involvement in the transaction. So if you need to borrow $100,000 to purchase a piece of property, you're not going to have any trouble getting 65. If you want more than that, trouble. If you're getting it for 100 and the borrower's carrying 35, most lenders are still going to want to see some skin in the game. Maybe it's 5,000, maybe it's 3,000. They want to see some level of participation because they want to make sure that pain from disconnect will happen. They don't want to make it easy for you to just walk away and leave you and the seller that carried the second note for you hanging. That's not what they're interested in. They want to lend money in good investments and make sure that they're going to get their investment back and make a good return on their investment. So if someone is reluctant to putting in their cash, be skeptical about putting cash in. If the deal's not good enough for you to risk your money, why should we, our partners, or anyone else risk their money? And guys, I got to tell you, this is a lender secret you need to know. If you're out there trying to find money with no participation from you or a partner or other collateral, you're going to have a real hard time getting funding, and you're going to hear no a lot. Okay? Now, I know many of you are here on the call thinking, well, Lee, I want to do no money down real estate because I read that book and it says that you can buy properties with none of your own cash. This is true. You can, but it doesn't mean cash won't change hands. It just means it won't be your cash. To illustrate that, first house I ever bought it up in Spokane, Washington. $35,000 I paid for this house. Now, the seller of the property wanted all cash, $35,000. We also needed $15,000 to fix it up. Now, I had personally gone out and put this property under contract. This was years ago. It was my first deal. I was an 18-year-old kid. Put it under contract. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any credit. I'm working at the grocery store making $3.90 an hour. How am I going to get the funds to do this deal? Well, if you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, poor people say I can't, rich people say how can I? And that's a philosophy many of you need to adopt when you're submitting these transactions to us, to say, if you don't have any money, that doesn't mean you can't do this business, but it does mean you need to go find somebody that does. So I actually partnered up with the pharmacist that worked at the grocery store that I was at. He put up his credit to get the loan for $35,000 to acquire the residence, and then we used his credit cards for the $15,000 in renovation and repair, and then I went out there and I put in all the sweat equity. And when everything was said and done, we sold the property for $80,000, paid off all the underlying loans, the credit cards, and all of the interest costs associated with that, and then we split the profits. That was a great deal. None of my own money, but someone had to put in money. So if you want to increase the number of times you're hearing yes, go out and find people that will partner with you, get behind you financially, give you the money that you need so that you can get involved in some of these transactions. Because boy, guys, I got to tell you, some of you are submitting some outstanding deals. I mean, these are great deals. If you came into my office right now on the whiteboard that sits behind my desk, you would see close to $50 million in funding that we are working on providing for some of you, because you're just bringing us great deals. And they're just on and on. They just keep coming in. And those are the types of relationships that we want. Now, let me make another point before we move beyond this whole credit thing. Many people are coming to me saying, hey Lee, your seminar said that I could get up to 65% acquisition value with none of my own money down, and the lender would possibly give me cash to fix the property up. Okay, so let's look at what that looks like. And I'll illustrate that by giving you a deal that I actually did. Okay, I purchased a piece of property. It was a short sale. I bought it for $75,000. I had an investor come in, and the investor agreed to give me $100,000. So he liened the property for $100,000. I left closing with a check for $25,000 in cash. These were not escrowed funds. These were not line item breakdowns where I had to go through and submit pictures of the work that I had done, photos, receipts of the items that I have purchased, and on and on and on. Now, this is the kind of loan everyone wants, because this is a beautiful loan. You get more than you pay for the property. You don't have to worry about line item breakdowns and submissions and all of those things. And you get to leave cash, or you'll get to leave closing with a check. Well, here's what you all need to know. This was about the 30th hard money deal that I had done with this investor. So I had a pre-existing relationship with this person, and I performed on every single transaction. So why wouldn't he want to give me more money to go do fix-up and rehab? And I'll tell you, I only used about 10 of this for rehab. I used the other 15,000 to go buy more property. Okay? So if you're looking to get these types of loans, understand that as of now, If you're working with a lender that has never funded a transaction for you, has no relationship with you whatsoever, the odds of getting this loan are like 1,000,000 to 1, unless you're related to this person and they just think you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. No stranger on the planet is going to give you this type of a term without first proving that you know what you're doing. All right? So please don't be sending these types of deals to my office until we have closed a deal that looks more like this. You need to borrow $75,000, and we know we can effectively lend up to 65. Okay? So you can get $48,750 on this deal, which means if you need 75, you are $26,250 short. So where can you get this money? Now again, I'm not so much interested in whether or not you have $26,000. I'm really more interested in if you know someone that will put in $26,000 to do this deal with you. All right? Now, there's always somebody in the audience that's going to say something like, well, Lee, I know this guy that would do that. Well, good. Then go to that guy. All right? And that's what's important. If you get nothing else out of today, get this. I am a training education company that happens to provide loans for people that have a need and have some skin to put in the game and can perform. All right? I am not a charity organization where we're just going to write checks to everybody who sends in a deal. And I'll tell you, we will get to a point with some of you where you can do this type of a transaction, where you can actually get more than you need to acquire the property and get cash out at the closing table so that you can go do fix-up and repairs. But guys, my wife and I dated for 2 years before we got married. And if we're going to do deals where we're giving you cash at closing, we need to go on a couple dates before we start, giving you half of our stuff. And that is giving you all of the funding you need for acquisition plus funding for fix-up and repair. Again, not saying that those deals don't happen and can't happen on the first transaction. I'm merely saying that they are incredibly challenging to find that niche investor that's willing to do that for a stranger. And if you're still struggling with that concept, let me ask you this question. If you didn't know me from Adam, you've never met me, you don't know what my credit report looks like, you don't know what my financial statement says, you don't have a clue who I am, and I called you off of some ad out of the newspaper, off of Craigslist, and I say, hey, I've got a property, I'm buying it for $75,000, I would like you to lend me $100,000 in cash and leave closing with a check for 25 G's. You going to write me a check? And if you're saying, yes, I'll write you a check, please send me an email or call me immediately, because we need to have a serious conversation, because you shouldn't be making these types of loans, all right? I know it, you know it, our investors know it. So let's date for a couple of months on a few transactions, and then we'll talk about some of the more creative financing that's available once you've established yourself as a player. Now, inevitably, I get calls from, I've been a real estate broker for 40 years, or I've been in the lending business for 10 years, and I've done this and I've done that. Great. If you're so amazing and so successful, why don't you have any money to put into the game? Why can't you contribute some of that cash that you've been so successful in earning? Why can't you contribute some of that money into this deal? Guys, cash really tells us as investors and as lenders what your level of risk is and what your believability about that project is. Because if you're unwilling to participate from a monetary or equity or collateral position, do you believe that it's a good deal? If you're not willing to put up your cash, that says a lot as to your believability as to whether or not that deal is going to happen. Okay? Now, I want you to flip to the other side of everything that I just said. If you're sitting here listening to me or watching me from home right now, listen to everything I just said. And if you're sitting on, say, $500,000, based on everything I just told you about what's a good loan and what's a bad loan and the types of things to avoid and the types of things to look for, are you going to be a little bit more confident about allowing me to possibly place some of your funds? Probably, because you understand that our parameters aren't just loosey-goosey. We're not just handing out money here. We are qualifying people to make sure they know what they're doing so that you as the investor aren't going to lose money. Furthermore, the person bringing the deal to us, if they want to buy this piece of property, if we're saying no, we're now protecting them from getting involved in a bad investment. So guys, it's circular. We want to be in business with all of you as long as we possibly can, as long as you'll allow us to be. But the only way that relationship can happen is if you make money on every single deal that you get yourself into. And that's why sometimes we're a little tough on you. It's nothing personal. We just want to make sure that we can guarantee your success. That's why we do it. Okay? All right, the 4 questions you can ask to very quickly qualify the deal. Looking at page 31 in your manual. Page 31 in your manual. What is the property worth? What is the value of the subject property that you are looking for funding on? What is it worth? Hang on, I'm just finding my slide that corresponds with this. Here we go. Okay. What is the property worth? Find out what the borrower thinks, but you will eventually need to get comps. Never let borrowers provide the comps. You need to determine value for yourself. Have your own realtor pull comps the way that you want them. Also, don't depend on an appraisal. The appraiser's job is to keep the customer happy, which means pushing the appraisal above actual value to make sure he or she retains any and all of your future business. And this is a very long way of saying, do your own valuation. When you submit a packet to my office, please provide comps, okay? Here's what we need when you're pulling comps. I need a radius around the subject property large enough that you can get me at least 25 to 50 comparables. And here's what you're going to find fascinating is I don't want all sold comps, okay? So if you've got a subject property here, this is your subject property. What I need are 25 to 50 comparable sales or comparable properties. Please write this down. I need 25 to 50 comparable properties and their status, and these need to be off of the MLS, guys. These cannot just be some random thing you pulled out of the newspaper. These need to come through your local multiple listing service, which you can get access to through your local agent. Now, the reason you need to write this down and be specific when talking with your agent is most agents will only pull for you sold comparables. Well, to get this many sold comparables means that you're going to have to go a long ways away, sometimes 20 to 50 miles away from the subject property in all directions to get the number of comps that we need. And now you're pricing this out of the area. I need immediate. So to get this many comps in this in a little smaller circumference here, what I need is I need sold comps, I need pending sales, I need under contract properties. Under contract, pending, depends on the market you're in. California uses pending. Other parts of the country use under contract. I also want withdrawn listings. These are listings that have been withdrawn by the seller. For whatever reason, they decided they didn't like their agent, so they withdrew the listing. Or expired listings. The reason for expired listings is I want to know if this property has been on the market in the past. Because if it sat on the market for the last 80 days and didn't sell, what a lot of agents will do is they will expire the listing prematurely, put it back on the market, because if you understand the algorithms of how the MLS system works, it actually is based on a code that says the newest listing gets pulled first. So if I've got a dead listing that's just sitting there, I'll expire the listing, put it back as an active listing so it shows up as a new listing, and now it will be seen by all of the agents again in town. Because if you know anything about selling and marketing real estate, it's all based on eyeballs and traffic. So if you want to get more eyeballs and traffic to your listing, expire it, put it back active. That's why most agents do that. But I want to see those expired listings, so I need to know how long has this property sat on the market. Now, if you're pulling solds, pendings, under contracts, withdrawns, expireds, and you need 25 or 50 of them on the same page, instead of going from a 20-mile radius around the subject property, we're going to be about a half of a mile. And that's about the max that I want to go to get the required that we need here. Now, if you're in a rural area, I will tell you this. If you're in a rural area and you're looking for lending in rural places where you're dealing with 50-acre tracts where nothing sells, I had a guy call me the other day. He was very upset with me because we could not fund on a 20-acre farm in the middle of somewhere in Texas. Well, the reason we couldn't fund it is there hadn't been a sale in that town for years. So we had no idea what value was, and he was looking to borrow 100% of the acquisition price and wasn't willing to put any of his own money into the deal. Now, you guys have been here a while. You've been with me like 3 hours now, so you're starting to see, yeah, why did he even call you? That's kind of silly. You're right. It wasn't a good deal. Why did he call me? Well, he couldn't provide this. Guys, if you can't provide the 25 or the 50, you may have gone too rural. And I'm going to show you here in the afternoon session deals that are just a waste of your time. Just move on. Go to the next thing. All right? So when you're submitting these transactions, make sure that you're pulling up the comparables that we need so that we can get a good feel for value. And know this too, even if you provide these for us, I'm still going to contact a local agent that you are not affiliated with, and I'm going to ask them to provide for me a BPO, okay? A BPO. Now, if you've heard the word BPO before, it's because you hear them a lot in short sale investing, and BPO merely stands for a broker's, that's brokers. How about brokers? A broker's price opinion. Okay, BPO. Basically, we're paying an agent like $80 to go out there and take some subject photos of the property, some interior photos of the property, some surrounding photos of the neighborhood around the property, so that we can know that these comps are indeed accurate. Now, it's not a trust thing, okay? It's nothing personal, but because I've been a licensed broker for quite some time, I know how easy it is to manipulate the comparables on the MLS. If you gave me a property in a neighborhood of $250,000 homes, within just a few mouse clicks, I could prove that that house was worth $95,000. And with a few more mouse clicks, I could prove that that house is worth $350,000. So it's real easy to manipulate comparables if you know how to do it. And some of these agents are really good at manipulating it, especially appraisers, which is why we want to make sure we verify and determine that comps have not been manipulated into what's the best interest of the borrower, which, as you guys now know, is not really in the best interest of the borrower, because if they manipulate comps and they overfund, they can't sell, they get foreclosed on, and they lose all of their participation. So it doesn't make sense to do that. 2, how much does the borrower need? Okay, how much are you looking to borrow on this deal? And number 3, does the borrower have any money or collateral to put into the deal? If a friend will put up the money or collateral, pull the friend's credit report and loan to the friend. Okay? And what that's referring to in that example is getting someone else to sign, okay? A co-signer. You've all heard those. If you ever bought a car as a kid, you probably had to have your parents co-sign for it. You can do the same thing in real estate. If your credit is challenged and your financial statement isn't really as strong as it could be or should be, go find someone who has one that is and have them co-sign on the loan. Their strength from a financial paper perspective could indeed be the difference between getting funding and not getting funding. So again, if you're getting rejections on the loans you're submitting, don't take it personal. Just think through it and go, okay, if I'm not getting funding here, what do I need to change? What types of deals do I need to pursue? What kind of investment partners do I need to be in search of? And how much cash do I really need to have to truly play this game? And just as a quick FYI side note, if you are looking for funding so that you can go down to a foreclosure auction and bid there, you're not going to find it from a national source. You need to find it from a local source, because my company, we do not fund foreclosure acquisitions, and here's why. If you're going to go down to a foreclosure sale, and if you guys have never participated in a foreclosure auction, I would encourage you to go check it out. It really is an educational experience. But if you don't know what you're doing, please do not buy. You will get eaten alive. There's a lot of sharks down there, and you need to be aware of that. But if you want to play at the foreclosure auctions, go down and watch the process and see who the players are. See who's got big notebooks of data and information that are buying property after property after property. Because they most likely are a local company that's buying local real estate, and they have local funds. Now, let's say that I'm tracking a piece of property, or let's say that you're tracking a piece of property. And you call me and you say, Lee, I got this great house. It's worth $300,000. The opening bid is $120,000, and I want to bid it up to $150,000. Can your company provide funding for that? Well, here's essentially what you're asking. You're basically saying, Lee, wire me $150,000 collateralized against nothing because you don't own the house. And there's no guarantee that when you show up to the auction that that house is even going to go to sale. The homeowner could postpone, they could file bankruptcy, they could have worked out something with their lender, they could have worked out something with an investor the night before the sale. There is no guarantee that that property is going to go to sale. However, for you to go down there and bid, you need to show up. In most markets, you need to have all cash to bid, which means you're asking me to give you $150,000 in cashier's checks that you could take and run down to Mexico or the Caribbean or wherever you want to go, and poof, I got no money, I got no collateral, I don't know where you went. It's a very, very risky loan. Very risky loan. Now, if you want to go play at the auction, if you have other properties that have equity in them that we can collateralize, certainly we can do a cash out refinance so that you'll have the necessary funds that you can go down to the foreclosure auctions and bid and pay cash. And if you've got the collateral, the money's relatively easy. So if you have deals like that, all day long, those are pretty simple. So if you're going to buy at the auction, that's a great strategy. And again, don't pigeonhole yourself into this. Well, Lee, I don't have the collateral and my credit's shot, so I can't participate at foreclosure auctions. You can. Go find someone who has equity in some properties. Go down to the foreclosure auction and talk to all the guys that are bidding down there and see if they would allow you to partner with them. Well, why would I partner with you? You don't have any cash, you don't have any credit, you don't have any equity, you got nothing. You don't have a job or any credit. True, but I have a ton of desire and I'm hardworking and I will do all of the labor and sweat equity on this property as long as you'll give me 25% of the profits from the deal. This is the greatest business ever because everything really truly is negotiable. And you can't get anything you don't ask for, so you might as well ask. 4. What is the borrower going to do with the property? Okay? This is the back-end financial question. Can the borrower refinance it if that is indeed the plan? All right? What is the exit strategy? Meaning, if I give this person money, how are they going to give me my money back? What is their exit strategy? Well, if their exit strategy is to sell, and they're telling me that they want to borrow money for 90 days, but I look at the comparables that they've provided and that I've gone out and looked at, and all of the comparable comps that I look at don't show that the market time on such a property is 90 days at all. In fact, the market time on this to sell is 180. So if their exit strategy is to sell, they're asking to borrow money for 90 days, but the sale time for that market is 180 days on market. It's telling me quite a few things here. One, this is probably the first or second investment that this investor has been involved in because they should know better. You aren't going to buy a house in a 180-day on-market neighborhood, fix it up, and flip it at full retail value in 90 days when no one else has been able to achieve that in less than 180. Now, a good investor would have done the due diligence to know that this is a 180-day market. It's going to take me at least 6 to 7 weeks to get this property fixed up. So I'm not even going to ask you for 90 days for 90-day money. I'm going to ask you for 12-month money. I'm going to ask you for a 12-month term, which will allow me plenty of time to fix it up, plenty of time to get it sold. That exit strategy of selling now makes a lot of sense. What if the seller says my exit strategy is I want to refinance the property? Okay. If you're going to refinance the property after you've acquired it, fixed it up, gotten a new appraisal, made it pretty, and now it's appraising at the highest market level, how much loan to value are you going to borrow to pay us back? How are you going to get us our money back? So we illustrate that like this. Okay? You've purchased a piece of property. Let's say you bought a house at auction for $75,000. You want to borrow $75,000, and you know that we wouldn't do that, but just to make the math simple, let's just say that you want to borrow $75,000. The after repaired value, when everything is said and done on this house, is $125,000. Now, let's say on 75 grand we're going to charge 6 points, 18% interest, and you're going to pay us back in 6 months. So this is a 6-month term on this deal. At the end of the 6 months, your payoff on this loan is going to be $75,000 at 6 points. That's $4,500 in points. And I'm just going to go ahead and tack that on to the, 79.5 is what that ends up being. So I'm adding points to the principal. So 79.5 at 18% interest. So times 0.18 divided by 2 means that you're going to have interest charges for 6 months of $7,155. And again, I'm using simple interest here, guys. So you need to pay us back $86,655. This is your payoff of the loan, all right? So your cost of funds for 6 months is going to run you $11,655. Now, you need to calculate your cost of money. And this is where a lot of investors lose money, is they don't calculate their carrying costs of the real property. You've got to make sure your carrying costs are calculated. Now, even if you're going to use a credit line or an equity line of credit against other assets or your portfolio, you're still going to have money costs. Unless this is cash sitting in your bank, you're still not going to have costs. But once we get into the advanced strategy, if you're doing this with your own cash, my recommendation would be to set up an LLC that is a funding corp, move all of your cash into the funding corp, and then do this deal but charge yourself points and fees so that you've got a bank account that's earning interest and you've got costs associated with ownership that you can write off on your taxes. Now, I just went really fast, but those of you who can use that tidbit of information caught it, and those of you who I lost you, you're probably not ready to use that tidbit. So please don't ask me to repeat it. You can rewind the tape. All right? However, your exit strategy now is $125,000. This is a non-owner occupied investment property. Now, to pay us off, you need to get us a check for $86,655. What you guys need to determine is, what is the loan to value that this payoff represents of the principal owing? Let me show you how that works. Take $125,000, actually take $86,655, $86,655, divide it by $125,000. Okay? The payoff on this is 69 cents on the dollar, 69%, which will work because even if you've got challenged credit, you'll be able to borrow 70% loan to value of the new appraisal of 125, which would be just enough to pay off our loan. Right? Wrong. You're going to have closing costs for the refinance. You're going to have doc prep. You're going to have title fees. You're going to have other costs associated with this. And if you bought this as a rehab property, you probably have $10,000 of your own cash sitting in it. So effectively, you really need $100,000 to pay us back. So if this doesn't work and you need to borrow 80% to make this deal happen, now we need to make sure that you've got a credit score of 680 or better. Because if you don't have a credit score of 680 or better, you're not going to get an 80% loan. Now here's the saving grace in this transaction. It's not a cash out refi. It is what we call a rate and term refinance. Now, rates and term refinances are the pinnacle. These are the easiest loans to get because it is merely one institution replacing the risk of another institution. So if I owe Chase $100,000 and I go over here to Wells Fargo and say, hey, I want a better rate and I want a better term. Wells Fargo says, okay, we'll take on the risk of your loan and we'll just replace Chase's risk by sending them a check. So Chase gets paid off in full, Wells Fargo takes over the loan. This is what's called a rate and term refinance. Okay? Now, I'm about to share with you a strategy that is very advanced, all right? But since we're here, we might as well do it. So again, if I lose you on this, I apologize.